I want to introduce some of the folks on our panel, and then I want to speak a little bit about Esther Bush, who will be leading our panel. So we have, and please forgive me for mispronouncing anyone's name. We have with us Danielle Miller, a paraprofessional at Pittsburgh Public School District, a graduate student in a para to teacher program through Carlow University. We also have with us Erin SanDoval. You can correct me, Erin, please.
SanDoval. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, as someone whose name is Saxon Nelson, I give people all the time, so I appreciate it.
No worries, I get it.
Erin is with us as the Assistant Director of Teacher Residency and Induction at Propel Schools. Thank you for being with us this morning, Erin. And we have with us Dr. Charles Herron, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at South Fayette School District, who also is just a host of tons of historical knowledge and information around the Allegheny County public school system. So before we get started, I just want to take a moment to introduce who will be leading our panel this morning. We have with us Esther Bush, who I'm going to let Esther speak a little bit about her. You know, Esther is the president and CEO of the Urban League in Greater Pittsburgh. I first had the honor of meeting Esther Bush during my time at the Pennsylvania Department of Education. That's where I just came from. And I just have to tip my hat to someone who not only is extremely active when it comes to the issue of diversifying our educator workforce and leading the state around many issues around education policy, but also someone who's been at this historical issue, this civil rights issue for, over 20 years. We have someone who, has been at the forefront, and I have to give all praise to Esther Bush as someone who was at the State Department, didn't know how I was going to impact this issue, but had Esther in my ear telling me countless times over the phone, keep pushing. And I am just so forever grateful. I was able to create the Aspiring to Educate model, which is to diversify the educator workforce. But that all my work there is to folks like Esther Bush and the Honorable Judge Smith-Ribner, who I saw had registered maybe in there with the attendees. And again, I owe a lot to these two beautiful people who really supported me. So it is an honor again, Esther, to be here with you this morning. Please feel free to share any and all the great things you've done, and the panel is yours.
Thank you so, thank you so very much, Saxon. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the outstanding panel that Research for Action has pulled together. And everybody that's listening, this is such a critical issue. So before I introduce the panel, I really want to say thank you for Research for Action for not only your research, but for these community forums. The more people that have this information and can talk intelligently and advocate for what is best for our children, the better off we all are. I wanted to share just a few specifics about my background, which initially includes, I come from a family of educators. My mother, an aunt, and a sister were all teachers, and I'm a former high school teacher, college administrator, and very proud to say that the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh opened the first charter school in the city of Pittsburgh. And while I had very, very fine white female teachers, one or two African-American teachers, I would have paid under the table for a Black male teacher. That is how serious it is and was. So I have been interested in trying to put more teachers of color in the classroom over the years. And then a couple of years ago, I met Judge Ribner Smith. And the judge is someone who had served on President Obama's task force looking at the issue of diversity in our public education system. And I mean, she was so passionate and she just wanted to push and make things happen. I said, okay, I got me a partner. I will grab onto your coattails and together maybe we can do some things. And I'm so very proud that working with her and being supportive and led by her, that we were able to bring together some national attention to this subject. And so as we speak, we are working with the National Urban League, Educational Testing Services, and a few other national organizations to bring some attention to the issue of the lack of especially Black males in education. And we have held one forum and we will be holding a second one. David told me, Esther, when you give me the information, I'll send it out to everybody that's registered today. And as Saxon stated, we know the judge is is a participant this morning. So I want to thank her for her passion, because the only way we get things done is to collect the facts and be bold advocates. If we are not bold advocates in everybody's ear, we will fail. And I will just underscore the fact that I'm also very proud to continue to work with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. I am very proud that while we are in the last place in terms of having teachers of color in the country, at least the Pennsylvania Department of Education put in their ESSA plan, one of 6 states, to put in their plan that is a focus area. So again, Research for Action, please know that your work is appreciated in pushing this. And at this point, I am very pleased to introduce our panel who is going to have some answers for us. So let us begin with Danielle Miller. Danielle Miller, as introduced previously, is a paraprofessional at Pittsburgh Public School District and graduate student in Para 2 teacher program through Carlow University. So Danielle, your first question is, what inspired you to become a teacher?
Good morning again. I have always had a passion for children, and I was fortunate enough to spend time with them in high school. So I would go down and work with 2nd grade, and I went to college to be a teacher. When I went to my undergrad at Cheney University, and when I graduated, at that time, you did not have to be certified to graduate. And so I struggled with certification a little bit. So I did other things in education, but I always ended up back at the classroom. And so when I started at Pittsburgh Public, my goal was to get my certification so that I can hold the title as teacher. Right now, I am a group lead in early Head Start. So I have the unique pleasure of working with infants and toddlers and their teenage moms. So I get to teach babies as well as their parents, which is an awesome experience all the way around. But my desire to teach, or my desire to work with children, is just to get us, to help them help us, because at the end of the day, they will be the people taking care of us later on. I picked early childhood initially because I think the younger we get them, the better the foundation they have, the better school will be for them. And what I have done, or what I've noticed right now, is that some of our babies who come through our program have a better foundation when they get to 1st and 2nd grade because of early Head Start.
Thank you. I have one other question for you, Danielle. Why did you decide to enroll in the para-to-teacher program as opposed to any other teacher prep program that's out there? Just quickly share what made this one so attractive.
This one affords me the ability to continue working. I can continue my job. I can use my classroom or a classroom that's part of our program at PPS to do some of my practicums, which one of the things that I think a lot of paraprofessionals run into is that you will have to leave your position to do your student teaching. And financially, most of us can't do that. So people will stop halfway through the program because they cannot afford to stop working to do student teaching. And this program allows us the opportunity to work through it.
Thank you so much. Next is Hannah Mccarthy. She's the program coordinator for the teaching magnet at Brashear High School. And Hannah, your first question is, what are some of the advantages?
Actually, Esther, we didn't, unfortunately, we lost Hannah. She was unable to.
She couldn't get out of teaching today. So she is in the classroom as we speak, unfortunately. Sorry, Esther. That was a late.
As long as she's in the classroom, I can excuse her.
That's right.
Okay, so we'll move on to Erin. And Erin is the Assistant Director of Teacher Residency and Induction at Propel Charter Schools. Your first question is, in what ways is the Teacher Residency program at Propel helping the charter network build a more diverse teacher workforce?
Well, thank you for having me. And I also find this incredibly exciting that there's 70 folks on this call. So I'm going to do my best to represent Propel and to answer this question. But so for starters, it may seem obvious, but I think one of the things that the teacher residency program is doing to help build a more diverse workforce is we have data points, we have goals that we have for diversity. And I'm going to be quoting Dr. Robert Simmons here, but and it may seem obvious, but what gets measured gets done. Our goal is to recruit, develop, and retain racially diverse, highly qualified educators. So when we have goals that we set and we lead with those goals, it really helps us widen our lens to think outside a traditional box of the pathway teachers have or candidates have to become teachers. And then once we meet these goals, we are by default adding to our pipeline of diverse educators. And also, you know, this is Propel's 7th year with our residency program. So it's not a something new, or it's really been a heartbeat of Propel for quite some time now. And so I think that's, you know, kind of the first point is that we set goals around diversity. A second thing that I wanted to bring up is that the residency program is a tool. It is a driving force for Propel, but it's definitely not the only channel we have when we're looking at our diversity efforts. And I know you all pointed out Braddock Hills, specifically their middle school. And yes, a lot of the educators of color came from our residency program, or they work with our residency program, perhaps through mentorship, with our hosting resident teachers. But that's certainly not what is keeping educators of color at Braddock Hills Middle School. I know that school puts a ton of effort into their school culture, and they've done a lot of intentional work to improve the school culture for both educators and students of color. They've really made school culture and diversity central to their heartbeat. It really is. Like if you walk in their school right now, for instance, you'll see like framed photos of some of their Black male educators because Propel just had a Black Men Smile campaign. I know their music teacher, Alice Lee, she's also amazing. She has kind of led the charge with a semester-long Black History Month celebration. over the summer, educators there, over their precious few weeks off in the summertime, they all participated voluntarily in a book club of how to be an anti-racist over the summer. So I think that there's such an intentional effort there, and diversity is so central to their culture that, yes, the residency program can certainly help bring educators of color to the door. But if we are placing them in schools that is not welcome and truly valuing educators of color, they're not going to stay. So I did want to kind of mention that the culture that the staff and the leadership team at Braddock Hills is intentionally pouring in, that's what's really central to, I think, the increase and the retention you see when you're looking at that school.
I really appreciate your answer, because you flowed right in to the second question, which was about reducing barriers. And so thank you so much, because you have to put anybody in an environment where they can be successful. And so I really appreciate that. We're going to move on to Dr. Charles Herron. He is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at South Fayette High School District. Question: for districts seeking to confront the lack of diversity among teaching staff, what do you think are the most important steps to make progress?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to thank everyone for being on the call and allowing me to participate and share some of the things that I've gleaned over the last few years on this subject. I'm humbled, I'm honored, and again, thank you so much. To answer your question, I think that Ms. SanDoval actually began that answer. One of the things that you have to do is you have to feel like you're safe.
Yes.
You have to feel as though there's a value in you being your authentic self. I tell everybody that, no matter where I go, I'm always leading with Chuck Herring. I'm leading with me. And so right. Who am I? I'm a 52-year-old hip hop addict. That's what I am. That's what I grew up on. That's who I am. I am going to be that. I mean, today is like our dress down day. Right now, I'm wearing some Jordan 13s. So it's one of those things that's just part of the culture. But taking it back to where we really need to understand is that you can't just start with seeking to confront the lack of diversity at your district level. We have to take it all the way back to why most people get into education.
Right.
And if we take it back to why most people get into education because they like school. And that's why if you go and look at every school of education in the state of Pennsylvania or nearly across the country, you see predominantly white females in schools of education. Why? Because they love school. They understand school. It's something that resonates with them. And they come from a certain type of school, a school that really resonates with them. But then you take and you look at people, particularly people of color, and I'm going to speak of Black people in particular. We go to schools where we have a lot of school-based and/or curriculum trauma.
Hello.
So when we go to schools where we have these issues, then it's like, why the heck should I want to go back and be a teacher? Why should I want to get into education? Why should I want to do this? I hate this place, right? And so I look at my life though, and I look at where I was growing up. And fortunately for me, I had the curriculum trauma because that's just part of, thank you, Daughters of the Confederacy. However, but the school-based trauma I didn't have. I grew up in Wilkinsburg in the 70s and the 80s. And, I just think about my life. I had, in first grade, I had a Black teacher. In second grade, I had a Black teacher. In third grade, I had a Black teacher. In sixth grade, I had a Black teacher. But when I was in fifth grade, in the same building, I was in one fifth grade, but the other fifth grade teacher was a Black teacher. In middle school, I had 3 or 4 Black teachers. In high school, my principal was Black. My counselor was Black. My football coach was Black. My basketball coach was Black. So I had all of this Black excellence that was there as a mirror to show me that even though I didn't do well in school per se because of the curriculum, I mean, heck, I graduated with a 2.3. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. It's not where you start, it's where you wind up. And so I graduated with a 2.3, proud of it too, because I learned a lot of other skills being in that place. And I learned how to carry myself as a man. I learned how to carry myself as a Black man. I learned how to take pride in being authentically Black. And so I think that we need to go back a few years and take a few steps back and look at, why is it that most people get into education because they love school? Let's look at these schools of education. And when we look at the schools of education, then we have to say, if still to this day, most Black people and most people of color who are coming to college are first generation, and they're coming from schools that are, quote, underperforming schools, they're not necessarily totally ready to be successful in college. Their first semester, second semester, third semester. It usually takes about 4 semesters if you're coming from one of these schools to be able to get it. And then by the time you get it, you don't have the 3.0 to get into the school of education. But the people who struggled in school are typically the best teachers. And I'm going to stop right there.
Your comments, and I want to repeat that you shared, you graduated with the 2.3.
Yes,
and now there's a D and a small R and a period in front of your name. Yes, Thank you very much. You are setting the example. Let me ask you to respond, though, to how might recruitment and retention efforts be different in a majority white school? I think some of the rhythm that you just shared responded to that, but are there any other specifics we can point to?
Well, to be perfectly frank, I think that particularly for Allegheny County, I was fortunate enough to see some of the data earlier this week. And it's like, I think we need to talk about it just for all schools.
Yes.
And so what I found was that we really started falling off a cliff about 20 years ago. And so it's not going to take, it's not going to take a year or 2 or 3. It's going to take 10, 15, 20 years for us to get back to where we were. Okay. And that's just like starting at the baseline. So how might the retention efforts be different? Again, let's get back to, we have to make this stuff valuable. We have to make it like the leaders of the districts have to invest. You have to spend money. You have to go out and you have to let people know, because unfortunately, Pittsburgh has a reputation for not being the best place for Black folks. It has a reputation nationally. And so even though I come in there and say, hey, we can do this, all then the people are like listening to the stories that they've been told in their head. So now when we do this, when we set up this recruitment process, when we say, okay, we're going to bring you in, we have to make sure that the people have things that again, most don't have to think about. We have to think about, where are they going to get their hair cut? Where are they going to get their hair done? Where are they going to go and worship? Where are they going to go and be able to let their hair down, the proverbial, just hang out and be around people that are like them? Because we all live on the same planet, but we live in different worlds on this planet. And so they're in a world where like, for example, I come into South Fayette, I'm the only Black person working on campus, right?
Right.
And so as I come into this world, I'm here intersecting in their world. They very rarely intersect with my world. Now, I don't ask them to, because it's not necessary, but it's something that if you're going to ask somebody to come and intersect in this world, they have to be prepared and be ready to be armored up to take care of themselves, because there's going to be a lot of things that typically most people come in with good intentions. And so, but they say and do things that sometimes you're like, you really did say that, didn't you? and so it's not a thing that they're doing intentionally. It's the fact that they don't have the education or the experience of being in another world. So therefore they have questions that really just, most people would say, this is common sense, man. But you can't, you have to be able to carry yourself, and not a lot of people are ready for that without the protection of the leadership of the district, of people saying, we're going to make sure that you have a community that you belong to, of getting you plugged into different places, and being able to feel free to be your professional, authentic self at work, and to be your authentic self outside of work.
Thank you so very much. And before I turn this over to David to see if there are questions in the chat room, I want to underscore, and I have to do this now because it's so relevant to the points that you made and feeds in to why we're here today. The city of Pittsburgh is listed as the worst place in the United States for Black folks to live. The worst place, not next to the last. And I have been reading data over the last couple of weeks that underscores that. But even the mayor's race and gender report that came out in 2019 said a Black female could move to any other city in the country and be better off just by relocating. I'm going to stop there because I start to get excited. But all of that information honestly feeds into this conversation. We cannot separate what is going on around us. And with that, I'll turn it over to David.
Thank you, Esther, and thank you, all of our panelists. We do have just a couple questions and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to ask two questions. One quick one for Danielle. Danielle, could you just explain the question is, what school do you work at, and how is your work different? How will your work be different as a paraprofessional than, like, what do you do as a paraprofessional compared to what you would do as a teacher? Could you talk a little bit about that difference?
So the difference is just in the title. I do exactly what teachers do. I work at Westinghouse.
Yay!
Again, I said I work in early Head Start. So I take children from 6 weeks to 3 years old. And most of my students, their parents are teenagers at Westinghouse. And so we do double duty. That is not part of our job, but that is just the reality of working with young children. You must work with the family in order to be effective with the young child. So that's what we do. And once I have my certification, the difference will be in the title and the pay, but there is no real difference in what we do right now as educators.
Title and pay. I just want to underscore that. Pay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Danielle. And then one final question just for all the panelists. And we're going to ask you to keep your responses limited as we're running a long time. But question is, Allegheny County clearly has significant work to do to build a more diverse teacher workforce for our public school students. What is giving you hope that Allegheny County can change the current reality? So I'll invite any of the panelists to any and all the panelists to answer that question if you'd like.
I defer to the ladies.
I'll be happy to start. So first off, I wrote down a ton of things that Dr. Herring said because I think it really resonated with what we're doing at Propel. And, you know, I see Pittsburgh Public and South Fayette, like that is awesome. So I think one of the big things is for us all to realize, like, yes, of course, I want Propel to be leading the charge, but this is this is a bigger issue. And I think us coming together in this town hall where we can kind of join forces and tackle it from a much larger perspective is really important. And, you know, I think also there is a momentum that I think we're capitalizing off of right now. Like there is a momentum that people are feeling like. I looked at the attendees, like Brad Hills Middle School, they're all on there because this is something that people care about and they want to see a change. So I'm going to get long-winded here, but I think one thing you also said is like, there has to be money in here. Like you can't just say, yeah, we want this and it's great and we care about this. If school districts, if we're not investing and actually seeing some change in diversity, it's not going to happen. So I'm excited when I see Pittsburgh Public having a parent-to-teacher program because they're investing money in a problem. I'm excited that Propel is continuing our residency program because we're investing money in something that's actually a tool to see change. And, you know, you also talked about mirrors for students. And I know that Sharif El-Mekki is largely involved with Research for Action, or I know it's a name that you've mentioned. And that's a name we've been following and really trying to understand and follow the guidance of the work. This isn't new work. You know, there's been researchers doing this for years, but there is a momentum now. And I think that's why there's hope, because all the work that, you know, specifically Black leaders have been doing around this, it's now catching on. It's like, we're there with you now. What do we need to do to see some real change?
I just want to add that you're right. For Pittsburgh Public to even come up with this program, let alone actually allow it to come to fruition, that's where the change is for me. Like, I've been in education for over 20 years. I lived outside of Pittsburgh for most of that time and had amazing jobs and did wonderful things. But when I came back to Pittsburgh, it was very depressing because it was very hard as a Black woman to get into anything. And it took me a number of years to even apply for Pittsburgh Public because it was not easy to get in.
Right.
No matter how much great experience I had, that's just not where the door was open. But now the door is opening. And one of the things of some of the people in this cohort with me, we've been in education for a long time. So we're not new to this, we're true to this, and we are definitely coming with a wealth of experience to go along with this new education that we're getting. So just excited that we have the opportunity and we can still make some changes.
Thank you both. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Esther, for facilitating this panel discussion and for your comments as well. And appreciate all of the expertise of the panels. I think we are running out of time here, so we're going to move on to our next thing. And I think, Mary, that's you.
Yeah, I'm really just opening up the floor. So if attendees have any announcements, we have a few minutes reserved. I know Tammy from Carlo reached out, so I don't know if Tammy is here. I think, David, the easiest way is probably if folks raise their hand and then you can unmute them. But if you share an announcement, try to keep it at about a minute or two. But we just want to create some space if you do have that.
So I think
I can make an announcement
Tammy,
if we're waiting, or if you see someone, please let them go.
Go for it, Esther. And then Tamara, I think I made you allowed to talk on after Esther goes.
Okay, I just wanted to share that the second forum that I mentioned is entitled Structures for Success, Supporting, Developing, and Retaining Black Male Educators. Is going to take place Wednesday, May 19th. And again, we will send out the detail. It's going to be an evening program, 6 to 8. And I have also, just to answer David's last question, I have to say this as a civil rights leader. We must put our shoulders back and be bolder and demand more. I'm talking about Black, white, male, female. We have to be bolder, and we have to call people out when they are wrong. I don't care if it is your white male boss. You can have a respectful conversation. Again, I am embarrassed where Black folks are in the city of Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Esther. So as Mary was saying, we want this time, these town halls, to be an opportunity for folks to do share outs for anything that they would like community members to be aware of. It doesn't have to be specific to the topic of this town hall. It can be anything education related. And so a couple people have raised their hand, and I am trying to
Tammy's
make you
ready to go.
All right, so Tammy, go for it.
Yeah.
We're
Sure.
going to
Thank
ask you
you.
to keep comments short. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great morning, everyone. First, I want to just give a shout out to Danielle. Danielle, you are absolutely amazing. My name is Dr. Tammy McMillan. I am the director of the Apprenticeship Hub at Carlow University. I have the honor of working alongside Danielle in the paraprofessional program. You know, I just kind of mentor the paras along to make sure that they are successful in the program, right? Our apprenticeship program is kind of mirrored. It kind of mirrors the paraprofessional program. Our apprenticeship program, it allows early childhood educators that platform to obtain their bachelor's degree. We all know there's no pay in early childhood education. So, you know, once a teacher starts, they are not really inclined to go back to college. So the apprenticeship program, we give them, they earn, I will say, 24 credits of on-the-job training. So we're trying to knock down those barriers so that they're successful in obtaining their bachelor's degree. And we started at high school because we have a pre-apprenticeship program, which builds the pipeline for our apprenticeship program. And then, you know, we added on that paraprofessional program for people such as Danielle, who graduated from my same undergrad, Cheney University. I have to shout that out as well. It allows them the opportunity to receive their certification so that they can grow on the career ladders and they can also gain that additional pay, right? So I just wanted to, you know, point out that we are working at Carlow University to diversitize the educational sector. And this topic was amazing. This was my topic for my dissertation when I obtained my doctorate degree. So kudos to everyone on the panel.
Thank you, Tammy. And I apologize. We have a number of people who have raised their hands, and we are out of time for this. But what we would invite you to do is to please send us, if you have any announcements or sharing that you'd like to share broader, and we would be happy to share that with anybody who's been registered, so that can be public and accessible to everybody. I just be aware of time. I want to just close this out. We just, again, I really appreciate this. I want to say that at Research for Action, this has been a topic that we have been really sucked into, that others have been doing the work, and we want, as researchers, to try to amplify that work, that important work. And somebody, Erin, I think you mentioned Sharif El-Mekki, who runs the Center for Black Educator Development and they just made a huge announcement yesterday that they have a large investment that was made to them for foundations that has allowed them to do a 3-year or 12-year push to recruit 21,000 Black educators in the country. It's an absolutely amazing goal and really exciting initiative. And that's really what brought us into this work, was seeing the work that he and others were doing and knowing that we have some capacity to add some data analysis to try and hopefully help that. And wanted to, so that's sort of what the point of this is. And the brief or the report that we did, that you got sort of a preview to, that should be out early next week. There will be a public announcement for that, and hope that you will share it widely. The point Mary made is that there is very little data available around teacher diversity, and this is a source. We've been able to get this from the Department of Education and make it publicly available, and hopefully, as Erin said, now that we can see it, we can shine a light on these disparities and do the work to try and close them as well. But again, last thing I want to say is that we want to do this ACER project that we've started at Research for Action. The goal is to do fairly regular town halls like this. We want to try to do this and convene people. The topic today of teachers of color. We're working on some more research around teacher workforce in Allegheny County, specifically looking at teacher mobility around the county and where we're seeing highly mobile teachers and what strategies can be used to decrease that. So that's sort of forthcoming, and we'll be making announcements about those next town halls in the future. But please reach out to me, Mary, Saxon, also our colleague Anna Shaw-Anwa should have been mentioned. Anna did a lot of the data analysis that this report was based on, and led the author of the statewide report that we published in December. So thank you again for everybody. Have a wonderful Friday, and let's join this urgency to increase educator diversity, increase teachers of color, both in the county and around the state of Pennsylvania and the country. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great day.